Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for being with us. Cleveland's historic 114-year-old West Side Market has been undergoing major change in recent years. First, it went through structural change, moving from longtime city management to nonprofit management back in 2024, something that residents and vendors have been calling for years to improve conditions at the market. Now it's going through major revitalization, as once the nonprofit team called the Cleveland Market Corporation began, it launched a years-long $70 million transformation project funded in part by the City of Cleveland, City Council, and other government sources, as well as private donors. But there are still millions left to raise to complete the vision, and many months left to go until residents see completion of the project. In the meantime, there will be a lot of construction to wade through as you get your groceries and support local vendors. Here to talk about these updates and what you can expect when you visit the market, we have Rosemary Moudry, Executive Director of the Cleveland Public Market Corporation. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We also have Don Whitaker with us, owner of D.W. Whitaker Meats and former president of the United West Side Market Tenants Association. Welcome, Don.
Good morning.
And also with us, we have Jesse Harb, co-owner of Harb's Produce. Thanks for being with us, Jesse.
Good morning.
If you want to be a part of the conversation, maybe you can share an experience you've had at the West Side Market, or maybe you have some questions about the changes. Give us a call. That number is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org or send us a message on Instagram. We're at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Rosemary, please bring our audience up to speed on what the role of the Cleveland Public Market Corporation is in supporting the market, and then why residents and vendors thought a change in management structure was needed.
So Cleveland Public Market Corporation came about as a way to think about how to manage the market, to have a concentrated group of people who can focus all of their energy and attention on the market. You know, the city of Cleveland has stored the building for a long time, but they own 200 plus buildings across the city of Cleveland. They have to manage so many different things. And really, over the last couple decades, what became best practice across the nation for public markets was nonprofit management. And so the city, Mayor Bibb, looked to that transition, and folks like Don here really helped push for it as well. And so now we're about 2 years in, and part of our role was to be able to put together a project. There's a lot of deferred maintenance, some major renovation. We're just starting on the basement renovation. And so the other reason for a nonprofit structure is that we have access to a lot of capital and other tools that the city didn't have access to. So tax credit financing, private donations, foundations, things like that. We have a broader tool of broader range of financing tools that we can use.
Okay. And Rosemary, can you give us an overview of this $70 million transformation plan? I know you mentioned work just started on the basement, but what does it big picture look like when it's completely done, and what kind of buy-in have you gotten from the community and city leaders?
Yeah, so the project started last year in May with the renovation of the East Arcade, now the KeyBank Produce Arcade. So that's where Jesse's business is. And though that renovation was completed in January, and so folks have moved into their renovated spaces there. That was the first piece of the project that's now complete. If you haven't been down to see it, I hope folks will visit it. I think it really gives a peek into what we're trying to do with the transformation, which is preserve the history and the magic of the building, but bring the infrastructure into the 21st century with better refrigeration, modern lighting, better vending spaces and things like that. Now we're heading into the basement, which is the biggest piece of the project. The coolers date back to the 1950s. We need new plumbing. We need all new electrical service to the building. So that's the biggest piece of the project, and we'll be doing that for the next year or so. And then the other pieces of the project are really thinking about how did vacancy and underutilized spaces, how can they be used to bring 21st century experiences that people want at public markets. They want a place to sit down. They don't want to eat their bratwurst over a trash can. So this gives an opportunity to bring seating into the market. There'll be a balcony in the market hall that will have public seating. There'll be an event space where we can bring school kids to gather and learn about food, where people can host an event. There'll be a teaching kitchen. There'll also be a commercial kitchen in the basement, which there's never been, which is a really big barrier for merchants. And then finally, there'll be a courtyard, and the North Arcade, which is now swing space for the basement, will become prepared foods with seating.
That's a lot. That's a lot. You can see why it's $70 million and why it's going to take some time to get this done. Now, Don, we talked with you on the Sound of Ideas before this change in management, when nonprofit management was still facing some resistance from the city of Cleveland. And you were part of our Sound of Ideas community tour. That was back in 2020, and we're very forthcoming about the need for this change. What were some of the major issues that were happening at that time that made you so sure that this was the right move?
The deferred maintenance was, it was just 40 years of this. And we were just, when I got on the board in 2018, our main goal was how do we get this out of the city's day to day, you know? And so we worked with them and we just hit roadblocks. And then we probably hats off to Mayor Bibb because he put it in his campaign that, you know, he saw the vision that it needed to go, you know,
To nonprofit management?
nonprofit management and all that, like most markets around the country. You know, we reached out as our own board to other markets, you know, Pikes and in Philadelphia, Reading Terminal, and all that, and they're all nonprofit, you know. And Cincinnati, we took trips there, and it was just the right path to take it. And as tenants, we couldn't do it on our own. We knew, you know, it's too big of a machine to, you know. We tried, you know, and so we're just grateful that where it's at right now.
How do you feel about the change in management? How do you feel that's changed communications, for example, between market and vendors?
Everything is better, you know. It's, you know, the city did what they could the way their structure is, you know, but there was just two people there running the place, and then everything had to go downtown, and the bureaucracy was just, you know, a muddled mess. When the time it got fixed, there was 5 other problems that happened. So now we get a direct line to management, and things get taken care of. You know, it's a 112-year-old building. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have maintenance, you know.
Now, Jesse, you're newer to the leadership scene, not necessarily new to the happenings at the West Side Market, but you've been a part of a family business that your parents started there for years. So what was it like growing up in the market and seeing some of this recent change today?
Growing up at the market was a great experience. It's one of those things where I started at the market when I was 8 years old, so I saw the transformation from the 90s to where we are now, and it's come a long way in a positive direction, whereas before there was lots of things that stopped you from the integrity of your produce. Now we have outside sinks with the nonprofit coming in and being able to make those big changes in the North Arcade, which has also expanded the integrity of our fruit, which is now amazing because customers can come and shop at the market. Their fruit will last and vegetables will last a little bit longer because of the refrigeration piece. Adding the sinks outside is a game changer. You don't have to run inside all the time to wash your hands. You can do everything you need to do, sanitize outside and your actual spot. So you don't have to go back inside to do all that and then come outside, which makes the preparation overall in general amazing for the vendors outside because it cuts down your time, which is beneficial to all of us and the customers.
Sure. And you're on the board of the Tenants Association now. What made you want to be a part of the next generation of leadership of the market and have a say in the future?
I saw the rise back of the market. So being at the market for so long because of my parents, there was a dark time where it's like, because the city was handicapped to helping us vendors and improving the facility, to whereas now I saw the excitement coming back to the market how it was when I was a kid. So it's nice to see that, and I wanted to be a part of that moving forward for the future.
Mm-hmm. If you're just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we are talking about the West Side Market in Cleveland's Ohio City neighborhood and how it's doing under nonprofit management. It's still owned by the city of Cleveland, but it's been operated by a nonprofit corporation for a little over 2 years now. If you want to be a part of this conversation, the number to call is 866-578-0903. You can also send us an email at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Rosemary, let's talk about some of the details of what's being transformed with this $70 million renovation project. You did such a nice job of giving us a big overview of what's happening. But the market actually just days ago won an award for $750,000 for the state to help clean up asbestos and lead. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I mean, those were common building materials throughout the early 20th century. And so, you know, almost every building has lead paint that's older than, 75 years old. And then asbestos was used in the basement in various ways. So, I mean, the the challenges with those things are not when they're covered up, but when you're embarking on a renovation, you have to abate them properly to ensure that they don't cause problems in the future. And so that's really what that award is. Because we're going to be renovating, because we're going to be taking things apart, things that are not exposed right now become exposed, and you have to take care of them. So that's the work we're doing, and we're grateful that the state has awarded us some brownfield dollars to help us do that.
Let's talk more about the dollars that are necessary to make this happen. So this is a $70 million renovation project. The market still has about $10 million to raise for the project. Now, part of that is a matching campaign with the Tenants Association, which I think is very interesting. So, Don and Jesse, can you talk about why the vendors decided to put up their own money to help raise money for this project? Don?
Yeah. Well, everyone believed in where it's going and all that. So we just wanted to, we had so much negativity over the last 10 years or so, so we wanted the public to know that we're behind this, There's bumps in the road and all that, but we'll get through it. And so the board of the tenants and all that decided to help out here and put our money where our mouth is, So.
Jesse, what do you think about that?
I think it's amazing. I think it's showing that the vendors are investing back into their own businesses and the community, which then helps the community in general as a whole get stronger.
So how does this match work? And please, whoever feels best suited to explain, let us know exactly how the match works to try and raise this money.
It's dollar for dollar up to $50,000, and from last I heard, they're doing pretty well with it. And customers believe in it, and they can click on it on the website. They could there's links on Instagram and Facebook and all that. So.
Yeah, and if you're visiting the market this weekend, which we hope you will, because hopefully you're gearing up for Memorial Day cookout, many of the merchant stands have a QR code. You can ask them about it. I think for us at CPMC, it just we've wanted to show that the market is a true community project, and so I think we have various layers. We have the city is involved. The state has given dollars to the project. The county has given dollars to the project. Private foundations have given dollars to the project. Individuals have given dollars to the project. And so I think having the merchants also contributing really shows that this is the way forward, that we all recognize that this is a jewel in our community. And when something is worth preserving, we all have responsibility in taking care of it. It's not somebody else's duty. It's our own duty. And even many of my staff have donated to the campaign as well.
So tell me a little bit more about the match, so that everyone can understand exactly how this works. How long is this going for? Is it like all summer long? What's that look like?
No, we just did it for a few weeks. The goal was over the course of a couple weeks leading up to Memorial Day, we wanted to do this match as a way to both showcase the merchants and their commitment to the market, and then also get the public excited about the market, remind them of the changes happening. So we are coming into the last week. So between now and Memorial Day, so the end of the day, midnight Memorial Day, if you make your gift, it counts towards the match. So any contribution between now and Memorial Day counts to the $50,000 match. And as Don mentioned, you can give that match online at transformationproject.westsidemarket.org. You can go on our Instagram or Facebook. You can find the links. You can call the office. You can mail us a check. People give. We'll take your money anyway. You'll give it to us. But it's I think it's been a really good momentum. It's been really fun to see merchants get excited about it. I think I would just say it's really fun to check out Instagram and see. We've had a bunch of collaborations and merchants talking about the match, and it's good to see. Folks sharing their stories of why they felt like this match was something that was important to do.
You talk about getting out to the West Side Market. I actually went by yesterday. It gave me a great excuse to get some delicious buffalo hummus from Jacob's Oasis. Also grabbed my couscous and my pita chips and my tabbouleh while I was there. And took a look at the arcade. We do have some video of the new arcade if you're watching us on the IdeaStream Public Media YouTube page or on the Ohio channel. Hopefully we can bring that video up again. Because, Jesse, I want to ask you about the big milestone, including the renovation and reopening of the KeyBank Produce Arcade in January. I think we're looking at some renderings about what we'll see in the future now, but we'll see that video here shortly. Can you talk about what the arcade looked like previously and how you feel about those changes?
So before the construction, the arcade kind of looked similar, except the stands were extremely high, so we looked like we were 7 feet compared to the customers who were really below us. So now it evens everything out with the new design. We're all on the same level, which is it's nicer because you can communicate better with your customers that way. There's no like high ledge like blocking you from actually communicating with your customers and the customers seeing all the product, which is a nicer display. Now we can put a nicer display out because everything's on the same level. So whether you're tall or short or have a disability, you can see all the produce and the vegetables very clearly now, which is an amazing upgrade to where we were before.
Right now, we're seeing some of the construction that is outside of the West Side Market. So that's it changes where you enter, and this is kind of a little scene going into that arcade. And what was that process like, Jesse, while you were waiting for those changes?
It was nerve-wracking but exciting at the same time because we didn't know the full layouts. Like obviously we all have a game. CPMC had a game plan and showed us everything, but things move as projects bumps in the road, something happens, it glitches, and we all work together, which was nice because it just made it an easier transformation from the old places to the new vendor spots.
Okay. Rosemary, you told City Council during a recent budget meeting that the market was projected to turn a profit starting in 2030, which would be the first time in more than a decade that it wouldn't need city subsidies. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got to that projection?
So a couple reasons we're doing the transformation project. One is to ensure we can retain merchants like Don and Jesse at the market, right? They need to be able to have the infrastructure required to do business. But the other piece of it is that there wasn't a sustainable operating model. Jesse is not going to be able to sell enough oranges to pay for an 114-year-old building, right? And so we really wanted to think about how do you take underutilized spaces and create new revenue streams in order to create a sustainable operating model. And so that's one of the biggest charges of the nonprofit is, yes, to get this transformation project done, to have better day-to-day management, but also to ensure the market's future. And the only way the market has a future is if it has a sustainable business model. And so assuming we complete construction in 2028 at some point, that gives us a couple years to stabilize, to grow revenue through things like the event space. The North Arcade will obviously provide opportunities for new merchants and other rent, the teaching kitchen, those kinds of the commercial kitchen in the basement. So the idea was to develop other revenue streams that complement the existing merchants so that we can create an operating model that allows the market to be here another 100 years.
How's it going staying on schedule with the renovations? Recently working on some renovation stuff myself, and I can tell you things do tend to get a little off track, but how's it going so far? How do you expect that schedule to play out?
Yeah, we're pretty close to where we thought we would be from the beginning. We're just getting started in the basement. So this is the last week that merchants are moving out of the basement into their temporary cold storage, which is in the North Arcade right now. And so, even though we've done a lot of investigation and stuff, there could be some things we find in the basement that, make it take a little bit longer. But we're pretty much on schedule right now. I think for us, the race against the clock is really about fundraising. So we knew that if we wanted to pursue new market tax credits, we were going to have to close on our first piece of financing by the first quarter of 2025. And the other thing about new markets tax credits is it requires you to start construction. And those new market tax credits yielded about $6 million for the project. And so we didn't want to give those up because that would be $6 million more we'd be going to others to ask for. But it also meant we needed to start the project. And so the most efficient way to finish the project is for us to raise the final $10 million this year so that we can keep construction moving as quickly as possible. And that's the best use of everybody's funds. So that's really the race against the clock, is less the construction schedule and it's more the fundraising schedule right now. So, we're really excited. It's amazing. I think, we started fundraising summer of 2024 and we're $60 million in. So I think we have the opportunity to do it, but it really is going to require the whole community to get involved. And we still have we still have some foundations, we have individuals, we still have some like federal and other dollars that we're pursuing. So, we are looking at every source of funding we can, and I think this match has like been a really nice way to welcome the public into the project, and just remind folks that when we have a community asset, we all should take care of it.
We had a caller who wasn't able to stay on the line, but the caller from Akron wants to talk about improvements to the buyer experience, wants to hear about that. So, Don, I'll ask you about that. Have there been improvements to the buyer experience, which I could imagine would only be helpful for vendors?
Oh, yeah. The KeyBank Produce Arcade, just the way you could pick out your own produce now and all that. You can, I shop out there, so you could see just the interaction. It's so much better. There seems like there's a lot more product out there, even though it's a little smaller.
Yeah,
I would
you get
agree.
more room.
Yeah, there's more room out there, and that in the future they're building that kitchen in the basement. So that's going to be interesting. We can make our own lunch meats and stuff like that. We're excited about that. Do our own smoking and all that. We can do different products and value added and all that.
Okay. Another question from the caller from Akron was about the parking situation. There have been some changes to that. Rosemary, can you describe the parking situation for people who want to come by?
Sure, we made some changes in 2024, but we haven't had any additional changes in the last year and a half. So right now, we took out the gates because the gates caused a tremendous amount of traffic jams. And so the number one priority was making sure people could get into the market and leave the market easily. There's 90 minutes free parking during market hours. And then there's a kiosk where you can pay, or you can scan a QR code, and it's $1.50 an hour during market hours, or there's a flat rate or an event rate in the evenings.
Okay. And what about accessibility to the market in general? This is another question from our caller in Akron.
Sure. I think one of the things the market is most lucky is its location, right? Outside of Public Square, we have more buses, we have train access, we have RTA access. And so the market, you can really get to the market by foot, by train, by bus, by car. But I think the market itself has some work to do in terms of being more accessible to people of different mobilities. And so part of the project is putting in first floor restrooms to the market. Again, the design of the KeyBank Produce Arcade was to think about how the market can be more accessible. Having produce that's 6 feet off the ground as somebody in a wheelchair is not accessible. So I think it provides a much better experience now for everybody who's shopping. And so I think as we're moving forward, those are the kinds of accessibility things we're thinking about. Where is there seating, right? There's not a lot of seating at the market. That's really hard if you're elderly and it takes you an hour or two to shop. There's not really somewhere to sit down and rest in between spaces. So things like seating, things like more handicapped doors, things like accessible product, things like first floor restrooms. Those are the kinds of things that we hope will make the market feel more welcoming to people of all abilities.
We have an email now in from Morgan in Akron. Morgan writes, I think it's a very beautiful market space, albeit in need of work. Specifically regarding the aesthetic improvements, please try your best to maintain the historic feel and look of the market environment. Jesse, I want to ask you about this. As someone who grew up in the market from the age of 8 years old, is that something that's important to you?
It is. It's something that's not only important to us vendors, but it's also important to the community and the shoppers that have been shopping at the market before the renovation and still during, and the customers that have come new because of the renovation and the attention of the West Side Market. The feel of the market growing up, the old historical sites, the pillars, the bricks, which I think as outside arcade was being redesigned, the key part of that was leaving all the bricks, which the aesthetic of that is still there. All the old bricks from the market they've just been cleaned up. That's all it is. So the CPMC worked really hard on saving the integrity of that, because as vendors, we pushed for that, because our customers, they come to the market because they love it. It's home away from home. And it's same for us. We spend more time there than we actually do at home. So that is a key component, not only for us vendors, but for the customers as well, which I think we have done a great job so far keeping that integrity there.
And just to reassure folks, we're using historic tax credits, which means the National Park Service, the State Historic Preservation Office, they all have oversight into our project. And so every physical change we're making to the building structure has to be approved by them. So we don't want to make changes that will disrupt it, but I also want to say there's like an added layer that we can't make changes. Somebody is actually, overseeing and making sure that the changes we make are in line with the beautiful history of the building and preserving that historic integrity.
Okay. If you're just joining us here on the Sound of Ideas, we're talking about the West Side Market and the renovation that's already happened there and is to come over the next several years. If you want to be part of this conversation, the number to call is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Jesse, we already heard about some changes that have happened to the arcade in the space where you're working with Harb's Produce. Are you excited about other changes to come? Will the other changes that are coming benefit you?
Yes, of course. It benefits any change the market has benefits not only outside vendors but inside vendors as well. We work as a team, so it's nice. The new basement, the restructure of the basement, is going to be a plus for everybody inside and out. Honestly, all the construction the market's going to be going for the next couple years, it benefits all the vendors. It's not just geared to inside vendors, outside vendors. We're all working together as inside vendors and outside vendors and CPMC and everybody else that's helping us with this project to keep that integrity there.
Are there particular pieces of upcoming renovations that will be most helpful to you or you're more excited about, Don?
Yeah, we're excited about the basement renovation. It's been a long time coming, and that demonstration kitchen, that's going to take another aspect of the whole market. You know, we're going to have chefs come in and do cooking classes and stuff like that. You know, make your food experience a little more enjoyable, and that kitchen in the basement, that rentable kitchen, I think that's going to change a lot of stuff.
Is there anything either of you as vendors of the market are concerned about as the renovation continues?
Bumps in the road, you're always concerned about that, you know, but, you know, we got good communication going back and forth with management, and so I don't see any real problems there.
I would agree.
Okay. And Rosemary, is there any concern that you have about patrons while construction is underway at the market?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just keep coming down, right? The construction where it's located right now, I think one of the biggest challenges is there's so much work being done, but almost all of it is behind the scenes. So over the next year, I think the main question people might have is like, what do you mean there's like so much construction going on? We only see this tiny fence blocking this one area. And so just know that there's a lot of work that has to happen to infrastructure and things like that behind the scenes before we can do some of the really exciting things that will really tackle the customer experience. So I just would encourage customers to be patient on the customer experience changes like seating and things like that. Those are coming, but we felt like it was really important to address the systems of the market that allow our merchants to be able to do business every day first before we tackled those kinds of things. So, my biggest message is the best way to support the market is to shop and shop often. Don't just come once a year at Christmas. Come regularly, come often, buy your produce. Find your butcher that you love, buy some baked goods, sit, have a coffee, have a crepe.
Last summer, there was a temporary patio. This year, the opportunity won't be there because of the work that's being done there. Are there plans to bring a patio back? What will that look like for the future?
So I think that's one of the things that customers will be most excited about. The space between the longer end, the North Arcade, and the Market Hall will become a courtyard with public seating, a permanent patio that'll always be out there. There'll be opportunities for music, for cooking demonstrations. One of the things we had the first couple summers before we were under construction was we did some demos and some like pop-ups out there, and it's really fun to have folks coming out there. Folks like the Harbs would be able to come and show folks how to cut fruit or just sample different things. And so I think that space will become just a great space for community building. We've been able to, in the past, welcome partners like the library and things like that to do programs at the market. And so that courtyard will be just on an average day, a great space to, grab your coffee and relax before you, buy your meat from Don and your fruit from the Harbs. But then, we'll also be able to just do some very intentional community building there because the market is such an important third space in our community.
One more question for our vendors here as we wrap things up. As we look to the future, anything you want to share about your hopes for the revitalized space? Jesse?
Honestly, I agree with Rosemary. I'm excited about the outdoor space because a lot of our customers always say to us, well, where can I go just take a break? Or where can I go and have my kids eat their apple or their crepe they got inside or the candy or stuff like that. So that's the one thing we are excited about is the outside.
How about for you, Don?
Just excited about the future of the market, for other generations to enjoy it and all that. That means a lot to me. I'm kind of at the end of my career, and passing it on to other younger people to take over.
The passing of the torch.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for our panel for being with us today. Rosemary Moudry, Executive Director of the Cleveland Public Market Corporation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Don Whitaker, owner of D.W. Whitaker Meats and former president of the United Westside Market Tenants Association. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
And Jesse Harb, co-owner of Harb's Produce. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we'll tell you what you need to know about hantavirus and learn why a professor of epidemiology says this is not the same as the COVID-19 epidemic. This is The Sound of Ideas. I'm Stephanie Haney. We'll be right back. The Sound of Ideas at IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. If you're just joining us, we are talking about the hantavirus, and people are concerned about this. People are concerned that this might be similar to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have an expert with us, though, who says that is not the case and why we shouldn't be concerned. Our expert is Dr. Tara Smith. She has a PhD in microbiology. She's a professor of epidemiology at Kent State University. Tara, welcome back to The Sound of Ideas with us.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. We want to ask you, Tara, to tell us again, what is hantavirus and how does it spread?
Yeah, so hantavirus is a rodent-borne virus. So it's in different rodents across the globe. There are typically two different types of diseases that hantavirus can cause. In the Americas, it's usually called hantavirus with pulmonary syndrome. It causes pneumonia, and that's what we're seeing right now in these passengers, the ones that have had the disease so far. This is caused by a type of hantavirus called the Andes virus. Elsewhere in Europe and Asia, there's a different type of hantavirus, different species that typically cause a condition called hantavirus with renal syndrome. So it affects the kidneys instead. And so we've known about these viruses since at least the 1950s, when they affected some of our soldiers during the Korean War. But we didn't know about the hantavirus with pulmonary syndrome until about 1993, when it caused an outbreak in the Four Corners area of the United States. So since then, we've found about 40 different species of hantavirus. Again, they're relatively uncommon in the United States, only about 800 cases of hantavirus disease that we've found since 1993. But it is something that we've seen and that we mostly know how to deal with.
And how does it spread, Tara?
So usually when you get these infections, it's from when rodents are present in a house or a cabin or something. There's some contact between rodents and humans. Often it happens when, like, a cabin has been closed up over the winter, and people go in and clean it up, and there's rodent droppings. They sweep that up. They aerosolize the dry rodent urine and feces, and then inhale that. So that's usually how it is spread to humans.
Okay, and so experts are saying hantavirus is not as contagious as COVID-19. Can you talk about that?
Right. So most of these hantavirus are not contagious at all. So the Andes virus is the only one that we have confirmed can spread person to person once the person is infected by the rodent. So the rest of them, as far as we have been able to see so far, they do not spread person to person. So the only way to get the rest of those is from being in contact with these rodent droppings.
Could it evolve and become more contagious? Is that a possibility?
I mean, with biology, you never say never, right? And certainly as this Andes virus, potentially infects more people, you always worry about that possibility, right? But remember, this is a virus that is adapted to its rodent host, and it has been co-evolving with that rodent host for, millennia, who knows how long. So it's unlikely that it would adapt to humans to become more transmissible person to person. That takes a lot of mutations in the virus to adapt to our lungs, and then also because when it's in our lungs, it's deep in the alveoli. Most of the transmission that happens with respiratory viruses is when they replicate in our upper respiratory tract. So this one replicates in our lower respiratory tract. Upper respiratory tract in the nose and throat means that you're shedding a lot of virus from your face, from your nose and your throat, and so that makes it much more easy to transmit to other people. So, you can't ever say that something is impossible, but it would take a lot of mutations for it to adapt to our upper respiratory tract and to spread that way and to spread efficiently human to human to human.
As I've been looking into the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, which is one of the types of it that you mentioned here, I have seen that it's fatal in 4 out of 10 people, about 4 out of 10 people. This is something that is on the Cleveland Clinic website. Why is this virus so deadly?
Yeah, so what it does, again, it replicates in the lower respiratory tract. So eventually it's, when your immune system responds to that, what can happen is it releases a lot of molecules called cytokines. And what those happens is it causes essentially a massive immune response. And, your lungs essentially release a lot of fluid. And so that's what causes the pneumonia. And because this is a viral pneumonia, it can't be treated with antibiotics or anything like that. So that pneumonia just tends to be quite deadly, again, in about 40% or so of those that have it.
So the quarantine window for these passengers who are aboard this cruise ship, it's 42 days. That seems like a really long time. Why is that quarantine window so long if this isn't highly transmissible?
Right. Well, because transmission is different than the incubation period. So transmission is when you can spread the virus. Incubation period is how long the virus takes within your body to replicate and to start causing a disease, right? So that's the time period from when you're exposed to the virus, which, again, these people may have been on their cruise ship, to when they develop symptoms. And it is long, and I don't think we know the exact reason why. But because we know that incubation period can be up to 42 days, you don't want to release these people early because then they could still be incubating this virus. It could still be replicating their body, and they could show symptoms again as long as 42 days or so after that exposure. So that's why we want to keep them in quarantine for this time, because even after 30 days, you may think you're in the clear, but then 12 days later, 10 days later, you may start showing symptoms. And then when you show symptoms, that's really appears to be when you're most contagious. So when you have the ability to spread the virus to other people. So that's what we want to prevent. We want to make sure, one, that these people, if they do develop symptoms, that they're in a place where they can quickly be moved to a place where they can be treated for this, right? Because we, of course, don't want them to have serious symptoms, to die from this. So we want them to get the best treatment if they do end up developing symptoms. And we want them to stay in quarantine because if they develop symptoms, they could spread it to others.
Let's talk about that treatment for a moment. We do know that several people did die from this hantavirus exposure. Others have hantavirus, will need to be treated or have their symptoms managed. There's no vaccine for it. So what does the treatment look like?
Right. There's no vaccine and there is no specific treatment. So with COVID, with influenza, we have some specific antivirals that we can give to people who have these symptoms. With hantavirus, we don't have any specific antivirals that can treat this virus directly. So it's really supportive treatments, making sure people are hydrated, making sure they're comfortable, putting them on a ventilator if the pneumonia gets bad to the case where they can't breathe on their own. So that's, unfortunately, really all that we have. And I don't know if they're doing, there have been some other antivirals that they've tried in the past for this. Sometimes you can take an antiviral and that was developed for a different virus, and sometimes it might work for this, but from the ones that I have seen that they've tried experimentally, nothing has been successful. So I'm not sure if they're doing other protocols for the people that are currently in treatment in other countries right now or not.
We got an email in now from an audience member. Lynn writes in and says, my husband recently cleaned out 3 dead mice from between wall joists. He did not wear a mask while doing this task. Should I be worried, and what should I watch for? That's from Lynn. Tara, what do you have to say to that?
If this is in Ohio, probably doesn't need to be worried. We have not had any actual hantavirus cases identified in Ohio since 1993 when the CDC started tracking this. So it doesn't seem to be a virus that is common in our mice here in the United States. Again, most of the hantavirus cases that we've seen in the United States, they're almost all in the western states. Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico are the big ones, California, Oregon. So if they're in Ohio, probably they don't need to worry about hantavirus. But again, the hantaviruses that we do have in the U.S., typically cause that pneumonia syndrome. So, if they're having problems coughing, short of breath or anything like that, I mean, it's good to see a physician in any case. But definitely for others that, again, are opening up cabins or things like that as the weather warms, and you're cleaning up, mouse leftovers. Wearing a mask is good. Wetting it down with a water bleach solution it will help to also prevent that from being aerosolized and also kill anything that's viral in that mouse the mouse left behind.
Okay, so our deputy editor here on The Sound of Ideas, Rachel Rood, is about to enjoy some much-needed time off, some well-earned time off, just so happens to be on a cruise. So what would you say to people, Tara, who are preparing to go on a cruise right now?
Yeah, I am not a fan of cruises for a lot of reasons. But, I mean, we know that cruises can be places where infections break out. Just because people are in they're in enclosed places. They're sharing a lot of food, buffets, and sharing a lot of spaces in the lounges and things like that. And it's just a crowded space. We have a whole city that's in this confined area for the most part for some of the larger cruises. So I mean, I think if you're going on a cruise, just anticipate that something may break out. Probably not hantavirus because again, this is the first one on a cruise ship we've ever seen, so that is very rare. But more commonly, you have COVID, you have influenza, you have norovirus. Norovirus is the one that causes vomiting and diarrhea. Very common on cruises because it has a very low infectious dose. It takes very little to get infected, and it's very hard to clean up. It's very hardy in the environment. It can stick around, and hand sanitizer doesn't kill it. So you have to wash your hands in order to get that off of your hands if you touch something that was contaminated. So, just plan on that, I would say. Just, hopefully it never happens, but in case it does, I would suggest taking masks for respiratory outbreaks for COVID or flu or things like that, so that if you are on there and you are potentially being around other people who are infected, you could protect yourself with a mask, or if you end up getting sick, you could protect yourself from other people so that you don't make other people sick. Take a little package of liquid soap or something so that if you don't have access to that, you can just get a little bit of water and some soap for something like norovirus that, again, is not killed by just the hand sanitizer that may be offered frequently. But, if I was on a cruise, I would, again, I'm not a cruise person, but if I was on one, I would try to just, relax, not think about that, but have those kind of plan B items with me just in case.
Tara, before we let you go, I want to ask you a couple questions about the outbreak of Ebola that's happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That situation has the World Health Organization's attention. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, so one is that it was just detected just a few days ago, and we already have identified more than 500 cases and 100 deaths. So this is something that has been spreading for quite some time, probably for months, without recognition by the international community. Two is that there are Americans that are affected. We know one is symptomatic and others have been exposed. We don't expect this is, again, like the 2013 or 2016 outbreak. We don't expect this to be something that is going to come to the U.S. and spread here. But for those in the DRC and also a few cases in Uganda that have been identified, this is scary. It's frightening. And this particular Ebola virus is called the Bundibugyo virus. We've only seen it a few times, and it does not have a vaccine. So we do have vaccines for some other Ebola species, but not this one. So, the important thing to do right now for those in the area are to work with health professionals, to work on identifying cases, to work on isolating the cases that are there and quarantine those who have been exposed, because this is something that spreads, again, with Ebola, it spreads only when people are very ill, but it can even spread after death. Some of these cases have probably come from funerals where people wash the body and often touch the bodies during the funeral activities. And we know that's how it spread in the past. So that's probably happening here as well. And I know groups are on the ground trying to implement some strategies to to hopefully get this under control.
What are you watching for, Tara, as we wrap things up here in a little less than a minute? Any advice you have for people that what they should be on the lookout for when it comes to infectious diseases?
I mean, your usual, if you have any kind of symptoms, try to go to a healthcare professional. I'm more worried about just the state of our pandemic preparedness here in the United States because we have had a lot of cuts to CDC. We don't have anyone directing our Office of Pandemic Preparedness right now. Our CDC director is not a permanent director, and he's also directing the NIH, so there's a lot on his plate. I'm more worried about our basic pandemic preparedness at the federal level than anything for individuals. I don't think you have very much to worry about right now, just as a resident of the United States.
Okay, so final word on this topic. People here in the United States should not be concerned about hantavirus becoming the next COVID-19 pandemic. Is that right, Tara?
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time today. Dr. Tara Smith with a PhD in microbiology, professor of epidemiology at Kent State University. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
If you missed any part of today's show, you can hear a rebroadcast tonight at 9 on 89.7 WKSU. You can also find every episode of The Sound of Ideas wherever you get your podcasts and on the IdeaStream Public Media YouTube page. To get the last word on today's topics, you can email us at soi@ideastream.org. You can also find us on Instagram. We're at The Sound of Ideas. Tomorrow on The Sound of Ideas, we got so many questions during our spring gardening show last month that we are coming back with more gardening tips. We'll have master gardeners from across Northeast Ohio with us tomorrow. So send us your questions and comments about what you're growing or wanting to grow this summer, and we will ask the experts for you. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you very much for keeping the conversation going here on The Sound of Ideas. We'll see you back here tomorrow.